Over the last 24 hours, three massive stories have absolutely dominated the news. Now, on the surface, they probably seem totally unrelated. But today, we're going to uncover the single massive macroeconomic trend connecting all of them together.
All right, so here are the three pieces of our puzzle today. First, Amazon just completed a massive $50 billion investment in OpenAI. Second, halfway across the world, South Korea is reporting this huge surge in exports, driven entirely by AI hardware demand. And third, across the pond, Europe has formally announced plans to construct 7 brand new AI gigafactories. You might read this over your morning coffee and just think, wow, tech is booming, right? But by the end of this explainer, you'll see why these three events actually mark the dawn of an entirely new phase in the global AI economy.
Okay, let's dive into this. To find the connection, we really have to look past the obvious stuff. The broader market right now is heavily focused on consumer software, the chatbots and application interfaces we're all using every single day. And while that software layer is fascinating for sure, the underlying reality is that the most critical shifts are happening somewhere else entirely. If we're only looking at the software, we're looking in the wrong place. So let's break down our clues to figure out exactly where the real movement is.
Our first clue begins with a very, very big number. $50 billion. That is the sheer scale of Amazon's recent investment into OpenAI. It is a completely astronomical amount of capital. But here is the fascinating twist. Actually, it's more like a paradox that we really need to pay attention to. Amazon already holds major, multi-billion-dollar positions in OpenAI's chief rival, Anthropic.
So this brings us to a critical question. Why on earth would one of the most powerful tech companies on the planet fund competing frontier models at the exact same time? The superficial answer is just diversification, hedging their bets, right? It's kind of like betting on both teams in the Super Bowl just to guarantee you're at the winning party. But if we look a little deeper, we see a much more strategic interpretation. Amazon isn't just trying to pick a winner in the software race.
Well, you have to remember that running a frontier AI model isn't just magic code floating around in the ether. Every single advanced AI model requires enormous physical computing power. We're talking massive data storage facilities, incredibly complex networking infrastructure, huge power draws, heavy-duty cooling systems to keep those servers from literally melting down, and seamlessly integrated cloud services. By funding multiple leading AI labs, Amazon is brilliantly positioning its own cloud computing arm, AWS, to participate in the massive infrastructure spending behind all of them, regardless of which model eventually takes the lead.
And this brilliantly illustrates a fundamental shift in strategy. Think of the AI models, like OpenAI or Anthropic, as the airlines. Everyone is currently fighting over which airline is going to have the best first-class service or the fastest routes. But Amazon isn't trying to choose the winning airline. Amazon is building the airport. Because no matter which airline you fly, you still have to pay landing fees, rent terminal space, and buy jet fuel. It doesn't guarantee absolute success, but it completely changes how we should think about corporate AI strategy at this scale.
All right, let's move to our second clue. South Korea's export signal. Now, this flew under the radar and received a lot less mainstream attention. But for those watching the mechanics of the global economy, it's one of the highest quality hard reality indicators of true AI demand.
So why does this export data matter so much? Because there is a massive difference between forecasts and reality. Corporate presentations drive hype, right? They're all about expectations and promises of what might happen. Export data, on the other hand, represents real transactions. South Korea's exports are surging because customers are actively purchasing physical AI servers, advanced memory chips, and networking hardware. These are physical goods that have already been ordered, successfully manufactured on a factory floor, and shipped across the ocean. You literally can't fake a shipping container full of silicon.
Let's move to and see how this builds into an incredible multiplier effect across the physical supply chain. The purchase of just one single AI accelerator chip doesn't happen in a vacuum. It triggers a massive cascade globally. Step 1. The AI accelerator is ordered. Step 2. That chip immediately requires high-bandwidth memory to even function. Step 3. To connect that chip to others, you suddenly need advanced optics, switches, and heavy power equipment. Step 4. You have to physically house the whole shebang, which means installing specialized physical racks and advanced cooling systems. Just to put that into perspective, a modern AI data center can require up to 10 times the power and cooling capacity of a traditional data center. A single software query triggers a cascade of physical industrial spending across an entire global supply chain.
Which brings us perfectly to our third and final clue, the number 7. This represents Europe's major announcement of 7 new AI gigafactories. And with this clue, we are really elevating the stakes.
We're moving away from just corporate strategy and supply chains directly into the intense realm of geopolitics.
You see, Europe's announcement is not simply about building a few more data centers to make web pages load faster. It is driven by a concept called technological sovereignty. This is the ambition of a nation, or in this case, an entire region, to develop and firmly control a strong, independent domestic technological ecosystem. In the near term, building 7 gigafactories means a massive spike in demand for hardware. But the long-term motivation is far more profound. Europe is securing its own independence and national security by making sure they control the physical foundation of the AI era.
If we zoom out and look back through history, this makes perfect sense. Countries have always treated strategically vital technologies as essential national infrastructure over time. In the 1800s, nations raced to lay down railways to transport goods. In the 1900s, the focus shifted to building vast electricity grids to power the industrial age. The 1990s brought the race for telecommunications and fiber optics. And now, here in the 2020s, AI gigafactories are taking their place on this timeline. AI hardware is no longer just consumer electronics, it is absolutely critical national infrastructure.
So let's bring it all together. Let's connect these seemingly random dots. Amazon is spending billions to ensure they provide the foundation for leading AI labs. South Korea is moving record volumes of physical AI hardware out of their ports. Europe is pouring national resources into sovereign, localized AI infrastructure. These are not 3 isolated events.
So the crucial point is this reality. The largest capital flows are moving beneath the AI applications and straight into the infrastructure layer. The billions of dollars aren't just flowing into the code that writes you a poem or generates an image. The real money, the actual foundation of the entire AI economy, is flowing into chips, into complex networking systems, into massive cloud platforms, power grids, advanced cooling, and gargantuan data centers.
And you really have to keep this in mind. AI models will inevitably change. For sure. The software landscape is incredibly volatile. The chatbot that is super popular today might be completely obsolete by next year. A new startup might write an algorithm tomorrow that blows the current leaders out of the water. But regardless of which specific software model wins the race, every single successful model will absolutely require this physical infrastructure to exist, to train, and to operate. This requires a complete paradigm shift for anyone trying to understand the future of technology and finance. If you are only asking which chatbot will win, you're just focusing on the surface. You're watching the waves while completely ignoring the deep ocean currents. The much broader and arguably much more important question we should all be asking is, who owns the required infrastructure that every single AI model must inevitably use?
Now, as an explainer, it is my job to give you the full neutral picture here. Because, recognizing that infrastructure is the foundation doesn't suddenly mean these companies are a risk-free magic bullet. Today's market leaders are not guaranteed to hold their crowns forever. There are very real risks to monitor on this side of the equation, too. There is intense, fierce market competition among hardware designers and cloud providers. There are constantly evolving government regulations, especially as nations increasingly treat this as critical infrastructure. And of course, there are shifting market valuations to navigate. The path forward is going to be complex.
But one thing is absolutely crystal clear. AI is no longer just a software story. It is rapidly becoming the largest long-term infrastructure build-out of our generation. If you enjoyed unpacking this puzzle with me and found this perspective useful, make sure to subscribe and keep learning with us. And I want to leave you with a question to really think about and to share your thoughts on. Looking at the landscape today, who do you believe is best positioned to own the AI infrastructure of the future? Think about it, and I'll see you in the next explainer.